All right, who is popping out from the UDA polls box? This is the UDA leader, and you can see it's a headache right now, especially with the upcoming grassroots elections. The cacophony around it has been very loud. As you can see, he's trying to, is it close his ears or something like that? Looking at that editorial cartoon, right? It is such a tricky and closing moment. This can be a make or break for a party. And this is, of course, the upcoming grassroots elections. But of course, as we've mentioned earlier before, we took a short break. One of the issues that has come to the fore is now election or the appointment of some of the board members of parastatals who will be conducting and heading over different departments within the UDA party, looking at the election dispute committee chaired by Joy Mudivo, and also the other functions that will be having Anthony, that is the chair of KRA, who will be also embroiled within UDA party politics. We may just have the editorial cartoon back. This is what we have today inside the Star. I want to show you also what we have inside the People Daily. So will this be free and fair? Polls for ODM and also UDA. Party polls, a big test for the two. As you can see it right now. Earlier we showed also that ODM, they're mulling over also on how they will conduct their grassroots elections. And we are still in the woods as far as doctors are concerned. And you can see the government is down, is knocked out, bleeding, as we can see it right now. And the doctors have also declined the offer that the government has given to the interns, saying this is what was not, this is not the actual account that was given in the CBA. So this is the current state of play. But we go back to this particular issue that we were discussing, and Honorable Bunyasi Sako will tell us more because he's the chair of KDC, and if he's appointed to actually be embroiled in party politics as the chair of KDC, what does it really portend for him? Will he resign as the chair of KDC? Right. Let's just begin from you because I think you'll give us a clear perspective.
Thank you, brother. Indeed, I will. First of all, let me start with the positive that I see in this. I think there is a yearning to get people who have some stature or who have some position of trust to supervise this election polls. And by looking out for the chair, the KRA chair, and the other one is the chair for something else. Kenya Power. These are senior people in our own society, even if they are partisans, officials. But, you know, they hold positions of trust even within the parties. So I think political outfits are beginning to seek for acceptance across their space as credible institutions. And I think we should give it. If you make a comparative analysis, yes. if you are marking them on the curve, as they used to say, you'd find that probably Kenya is doing quite well in that respect. A few others may be a little ahead, but we will still be in the top 10, I would say. Mm-hmm. So now, do you compromise or undermine the integrity of whatever that institution you have come from by going to play the role of oversight as they are going to do? And they're really not public servants. I mean, you can't call a chair, the chair of a KRA as what do they call it? They're working in the public domain, but these are really not state officers, you know.
Non-executive.
Yes, they really are just, these are light jobs, I can assure you, in terms of how well they get, how far they dip into, no, that's it, I take that one back. Given by how much they become part of the institution that they chair and so on. I'm chair of KDC, but I really can't, by any creative imagination, be considered an employee of KDC. I defend them strongly, I will always do that. But there are staff who have been put in to do that. And I think KRA would be similar. I really think Kenya is doing a good thing. UDA did a good thing to try and seek out. In fact, they should have gone to the judiciary, for example, and gotten some of the senior judges or somebody to come and supervise the elections without being accused as being partisan, therefore, to that party. I think they are looking out for ways and means in which they can get some credibility. Yeah, it started a while back, as you remember. We are voting money, public money, to go support political parties. If they're that good, to get Wanjiku's money, the little Mama Mboga money that is going into this, is supporting political parties by the billions for these big ones. Why would it matter really if an official, a chair, or the chair for that matter, they should have gotten past the internal audit of KRA or somebody, or HR person of central bank? I'm just thinking about people in big public positions whose input could lead to greater trust. That's what we are yearning for.
Yeah, yeah. That begs the question as well. Your appointment, his appointment, the appointment of Joe Medivo, will you characterize that as a political appointment?
Yes, yes, yes.
It is a political appointment.
Yes.
So within a parastatal entity.
Yes.
So how then will you say, or how then will ODM have, you know, scruples with the fact that this is a political appointment and they enroll in political parties' affairs? I think that's where should be the distinction. Should it be a preserve of the president then to give these positions of chair of different parastatal boards and state agencies as political appointees?
If you allow me, I can comment quickly without dominating the floor, just very briefly. I'm even surprised that the Secretary General of ODM took that much time. The only value I saw in his comments were one of poking. You know, it's the other party, you have to say something about it. But it's none of his business, really. It shouldn't matter that much. And I don't think that after the chair of KRA has overseen grassroots elections, KRA will be any less partisan or non-partisan as it would have been even if he had never stepped out of his office. I just think that we're looking for partisan. We'll wait and see what ODM itself finds that they will put in charge of their grassroots elections by way of seeking to be above board, to say, here we are now, we are mature, we have come of age. They should start by saying, hey, we are managed by taxpayers' money. And they are managed by they are funded and managed by taxpayers' money. Both of these leading parties, because they get several billions, each of those. So there are public institutions that we should worry about how well they're made, they're run. I just think it may be a choice of who of the public sector people you select, but I think it's a good idea that they go that direction. I hope ODM will also find somebody that they can take, you know, from the church or something. Yeah, somebody in the public space that will give them confidence.
But I think he has already answered.
Okay, let's say from Biraki.
But he wants to defend him.
Yeah, he wants to defend him.
I think I totally agree with my colleague on the left.
Thank you.
About credibility. That UDA is looking for credible people to lead in elections so that the results can also be seen as credible. But my biggest concern is, one, I'm sure we have other people they could pick. And the two people picked, one from KRA. There's no doubt one of the biggest issues in this country today is about taxes. And to take somebody from KRA and tell him to oversee party elections is not fair to Kenyans, from our perception. He has more work to do. Make sure that taxes are corrected, make sure that more people are grouped into the tax bracket. If you look at the other person who is in this, is from Kenya Power. We have been complaining about high power prices and renewable power. So I think from every perspective, these are not the right people. I agree with him, he should get more independent people, maybe retired judges, people who have no other national obligations. But he is right, as a politician, that the two people got into Kenya Power and they got into KRA because the president appointed them. So when they are told now to oversee the party polls, they have to say no. I'm hoping that UD is not going the direction of Chinese Communist Party, where the Communist Party dominates even the government. I remember when I was a small boy, there was a headline in the Kenyan newspaper, "Can we supreme?" Because somebody asked, which is more powerful, the government or KANU? And I don't remember who came in public and said, "Can we supreme?" So I think from the public perception, these are not the right people to oversee the polls. Let's get more independent people who are not tied up by corporate responsibilities.
Right, tied up with the corporate responsibilities, and people have been questioning also the appointment of Anthony as a KRA chair. Before, he was heavily embroiled in UDA politics. There were cases also of KRA and obligations of remittances of taxes to KRA as well. But all that went down the tubes and became the chair of KRA.
Right.
And people wondered, okay, so you have a case against KRA, and then you are
The chair.
appointed to be the chair of KRA at the same time. We don't follow. What is really happening? So when you talk about credibility, how then do we fuse this together? It's sort of a dissonance that we cannot really try and decipher. I don't know.
Let me be a bit blunt. Let me be a bit blunt on this one. And I hope I'm not going to get myself into trouble with my tongue.
Please don't
when
be
I
like
say
this young man who was in Citizen last week.
A beggar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was silly.
No, mine is very simple. One of the aspects of corruption is cronyism. It is one of the definitions under the word corruption. The word cronyism appears there. Mm-hmm. So when you have cronyism happening, is that something that we should condone as a country? It has happened with all the political parties, all the appointments in a long time, where you have cronyism. Somebody belongs into my circle, and because they're in my circle, I appoint them to a job. Look up the definition of corruption and look where the cronyism doesn't fit in there.
And both start with
Right?
C.
And when that happens, it means that effectively cronyism is coming into this particular thing, and it is pervading itself. So why should the rest of the country not do it when the leadership is showing us that that is the right thing to do? I said I'd probably say something, then probably shoot myself somewhere very serious, but that for me is the underlying question that is raising all this temperature, right? You are part of my inner circle when I was doing my campaigns, I was doing everything else and so forth. And then when my campaign is finished, now there's something else, I appoint you to that place, right? And when something is happening here again, come back to the fold and help us out. The optics that this gives to the country is not very good in terms of what it sets for every other organization that sits here that is trying to run in the public space. Go to school boards, go to the county governments, go to whatever it is, all these areas that are in the public space. What kind of lesson do they get from this particular activity? That really is my concern, and that's why I said earlier on, I don't think it's the right thing to do that kind of thing, because you're just highlighting this whole thing. And if we are to make a big change in this country in terms of the public perception of the relationships between politics, government, private sector, semi-private sector, parastatals, what have you, and everything else, it has to start with this, stopping these kind of things. Mm-hmm. That's my view.
Why don't you make it more theoretical? Suppose KRA had a board meeting today.
Yeah.
And the KRA chief is going to be the board chair. And the headline says he's going to be reading in UDA polls. Yeah. How do the other board members react to that in that particular meeting?
That particular meeting.
Would they just say they have not, would they pretend they have not read that, they have not heard that?
But there's a narrative here which is, I think he was speaking, and we probably needed to interrogate it more. And I think this is a point Patrick's making. Do you want credibility in these elections?
Yeah.
And if you want now credibility, and I think the point we should not lose steam, the taxpayer do fund these parties. They do.
Yes.
Yes.
And therefore, we want to see credibility in the party elections. As far as we are concerned, to me, that is theoretical. In this country, it's theoretical. I want to maneuver those elections. So who do I get? I'll get somebody who has been it. But it's also important to appreciate and differentiate two things here. And Patrick, you alluded to that, I think, as we are coming to the first session. There's a difference between working for government and the different working for a party. Government is perpetual. Government will be here, it will be there tomorrow. Party might not be there 2027 or whatever the case might be. So what perhaps I see here is where the leadership in UDA, whatever party, I have no idea, I don't follow. I think there is Azimio and UDA, right? I didn't know they have a Hurubaru in their logo. And Ideally, we should not have people perhaps like in a position where you have key institutions heading that. But at the end of the day, who is interested in credibility in these elections anyway? I want to maneuver them. So I'll get my cronies to do it. That's how I probably look at it.
But before I come to you, Bunyashi Sako, because I wanted, in the spirit of good corporate governance,
yes,
because I know you're a corporate governance guru as well, what would you do? What would Jesus do?
It's a very strong, it's a very strong statement.
What I'm just saying is, what is the spirit of good corporate governance? In light of this, if this is a board issue that has been, one of us in this board meeting has been appointed to, oversee some functions within a political party, leading political party of the day. What does it portend for us as an organization in light of this? If at all maybe there are skirmishes which will arise within the particular party, how will it be reflective also of our organization?
This is a very interesting one because Mwaura has a very interesting position where the taxation and then the Mwananchi coming in.
And you can see what is in the dailies as
exactly.
well.
I would probably step back. I would first take one responsibility.
Yeah.
Either I say, great job, let me stay at the revenue. Or I leave the revenue and go on the elections. I won't have both. And I think Jesus demonstrated that, and we just come from Easter. That leadership, that Jesus, the sacrifice, even forgiving the thief, which they were hanged with. I think there's something like that, right? Next to him. I think that's what it's all about Easter. That's all about Ramadan as we talk. That credibility, doing the right thing. I would take that position.
Bunyashi Sako.
Yes. I got a sense that Patrick was going to leave, but...
Patrick, I think should be having a meeting briefly, then he'll join us shortly.
I hope he's not afraid to go at a meeting.
I hope he's not been called because, he actually said something, so...
I think he has been called on Kiaburu. You coming back?
But I thought, in fact, when he said, when he alerted us, I thought he was going to go much, but he didn't say anything that would warrant anybody beckoning him. He didn't go far enough.
He has to be someone for good things for this country.
Should I?
Yeah, continue.
Okay, thank you. I just want to take up the line of thought. Both professors have used the word theoretical. Towards the theoretical is where we aim to go, because that's where you get purity of thought. It's not biased by any particular, worldly considerations. But let us stay there for a minute. I think if you are an officer appointed by, like in this case, by the head of state, from a partisan segment, that was part of the criteria for being appointed. And now you're going to supervise elections, which are entirely, from the word start, partisan elections. They are for those who believe in UDA.
Right.
Others will come later for those who believe in other party formations and so on. We're not pretending that those that are going to go to these grassroots elections are going to be the overseers of the affairs of state or of our societies in totality. No. They are people who believe in the UDA philosophy. You're putting in somebody who is from the, that same partisan cut, as it were. All you need in there is that within those partisan people, that elections are fair within that definition of what they are. I see no big deal that should bother ODM or anybody else for that matter. I see being chair of KRA, nothing of what they find on the grassroots is going to influence his job in KRA, I can tell you. It just makes him a more faithful chair of KRA as appointed now.
We have a copy of a Daily Nation. So maybe what would you say when you're looking at that particular copy of a Daily Nation, when you're talking about fairness? You have a copy, yeah? Yeah, there you do.
Yes.
When you're talking about fairness within the party elections, how then do we have fairness also within the KRA jobs that are being doled out, divvied up, as you can see it from the dailies? We have, and you can see what is leading there. If I may just zoom in on this tabulation of some of the counties and that have been slotted the jobs. Thika Town is leading? I don't know. And maybe if I get granular, I don't know where Anthony Moura comes from. Maybe Dr. Gituro can tell us.
I think he's from Gatondo or somewhere like that.
He's from Gatondo?
Yes.
All right.
If I'm not wrong.
So you can see from Gatondo, if you're not wrong, and if he comes from Gatondo, and you're talking about fairness.
Yes.
Because this is public optics. This is perception.
Yes, yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
So we'll assume, since Anthony is coming from Gatondo, and Gatondo is in Kiambu County, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so how many slots have gone there? Bunyasi Sako, if you may look at that
The
tabulation.
nearest town is Thika town.
Is actually leading.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Followed by Muranga, Tabo, and this is what we're talking about. So when we're talking about fairness, because this is all about how then do we know him as a chair has not been embroiled in the appointments of these jobs or in the hiring of these jobs within KRA?
I think we're introducing...
No, I'm just
I
trying
hear
to
you.
say, yeah,
I hear you
get it.
fully. And I want to...
This is how convoluted it appears.
Yes. I want to comment on it from... I was told there would be two perspectives, and now looks like there are three. Makes it complicated. Perspective should only be two. There shouldn't be more than two.
Perspective.
Perspective. Now, one perspective, we talked about party affiliation, party loyalty, party adherent, and the loyalist is going to supervise party elections of loyalists of that party, and so on. I see consistency there. And of course, consistency is not always a positive attribute, but in this case, it could be. But there is another issue you're raising. Do you share state jobs by virtue of party allegiances? State jobs are coming from a general public, which include people who believe in what you believe in and who do not. So if you lean in the selection for jobs in only those who believe in what you believe in, while you are aiming to provide a whole society perspective, then you're clearly not cutting it right. But that has been the order of the day. In fact, I'm very impressed that this particular time, there are at least how many constituencies there might be here? There may be 20-something have sourced people. It's broadening. It's broadening along the principles of ideological belief and so on. Now, it has got its own issues. When the other side also gets into power, whichever that other side will be one day, they will probably also go to their side of it. They may sometimes be the same constituencies, but their adherents and so on. It shouldn't be like that, because we pretended that KRA, that's how we went to the public, is hiring on the basis of merit certain officers that they need. This now just reveals that did not happen the way it should happen. By the way, we have been very concerned when these kind of divides are assumed to be ethnic and we come out all swinging and so on. But now they are not, this is saying they are not necessarily ethnic, that these are ideological. If you're leaning that side, you're likely to have this kind of outlay. If you are not leaning that side, then give the others a chance to have their party. But then these should be officers that will leave when this particular formation leaves. If they aren't, they are permanent, then they ought to have been selected on different criteria, and perhaps the distribution would have been somewhat different. So there are several perspectives you can put to this. But I personally feel that if you take Catholics are going to run something grassroots, and you take a bishop from there to go and supervise it, there's nothing inconsistent about anything there. If you take a Muslim to go and supervise these elections, then you might have a lot of questions that should be raised. To supervise grassroots elections of UDA by a guy who is a UDA appointee, a UDA believer, blah, 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 I see nothing inconsistent with that.
But I think there's something here comes, Diba, Tim. And I think that this angle of what the nation is having on page 4, you look at it very, very clear. It talks about Kenya Kwanza took lion's share of the revenue jobs.
The ideology is talking about.
Exactly. And then you look now the chair who oversees this, because the chair provides us direction for that institution, is now being given a responsibility to go here to oversee the elections. And it is a point you brought. When you look, if we step back and theoretically, and I think we probably need to do that, when you get people into responsibility, you are looking at merit.
Yes, it should be looked at.
It should be merit.
Yeah.
And because it has an impact in productivity.
Absolutely.
If I get somebody because he's from where or wherever, from Gatundu or Thika, can the person deliver? And what translates to is the bottom line happening in this country. That the responsibilities are being taken to people, and God forbid, who don't know where they're coming from and where they're headed. When you get certain people being chair of certain key institutions in this country, you get concerned. And therefore, the bottom line, it translates as a country, are we enhancing production? Are we enhancing wealth creation? And thinking to me, that's the bottom line. But there's a lot of telling story. Even the courts actually say, no. There were two, basically they were coming from two areas, either from Central or West Valley. That's a worrying trend. They're really concerned.
All right. Okay. I think we need also to just wind up on it.
Yes.
Briefly. Yes.
I think I'm enjoying the conversation between the two of my colleagues.
Why are you scribbling on the paper today? There's a Conrad.
Oh, because I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
I think Conrad notebook there.
Yes. One of the issues that I raised immediately is I looked at the list of the constituencies. Mine was missing. I don't disclose the name, but I believe there are competent people in my constituency who would have joined KRA. And I like the way you are trying to connect leading UDA elections and the headlines here, that there could be a connection. That if we don't entrust you with fair recruitment within KRA, we don't expect you to do the same in UDA elections. But the bigger issue here is fairness. Whether you are the one reading UDA polls or whether you are the one recruiting KRA, in charge of recruiting KRA workers, are you fair? And that's why I've always insisted that if we have to have productivity in this country, if we have to have fairness in this country, public service jobs should always be done on lottery basis. Let's use lottery, Bahati Nasibu. So we say we want 2,000 people. How many people are qualified? 10,000. Put them in a hat, hold them, and pick them. Because I'm looking at this headline and assuming that I'm a young graduate who left university 2 years ago or 5 years ago and I don't have a job. Then I see this distribution. It's not fair. So I think the bigger issue, whether it is KRA sharing UDA polls, whether it's recruitment, we are asking, is there fairness in this country? Is there justice in this country?
You know, I'm thinking, even before we wind up...
and I'm not being theoretical.
You're not being theoretical?
No.
Right. It's a good point to raise, because if I'm just thinking, we recently, that was last year, towards the end of last year, there was a publication that we saw a story of Vera. I can't remember the other name, but she was a student at Masinde Muliro University. She graduated with a Bachelor's of Science. I think it was biotechnology. And she had actually made applications, almost 500 applications looking for a job for 5 good years. So one morning, her mom wakes up. She wakes up, she goes to her room, she's not there. Only when she opens the door to the bathroom, she finds that she has hanged herself. And the thing is, it's because she's frustrated. She's not really gotten a job since she graduated 5 years on. If you have a mother picking up a daily today, or she's reading this daily, what do you think will really go on into Vera's mom's mind? Especially in this country, where we have many people who are qualified. But because my name betrays me, I cannot get a space there. And you can see even parents actually nowadays are very picky on how they're naming their children. Right? They sound English. Right? Seriously. I mean, all of them, they sound English. Michael Jones. Only to find Michael Jones, who's coming for the interview. Yeah? He's a pitch black, tall man from Ugenya, from south there. Yeah? But it's because the circumstance of the day and the way this is so backed into a system, the ethnicity, tribalism, and fairness. This is what is
but I want to
very, very depressing. I just want you to comment on that. Yes. How then will you see? Because there's so many. Or even the doctors now who are striking. There's a doctor who also died by suicide because he has not gotten jobs since he graduated, right? And it's 4,000 jobs. We're still grappling with the issue of doctor strike.
It's good to take issues on frontally. And I like your preliminary remarks here. They're taking this new issue frontally. I say new because the previous issue was, could a UDA appointed or a party appointed official or chairman of a parastatal be asked to go and should he be asked to go and supervise grassroots elections?
Yes.
And so on. Is that right or not? That's what we are trying to argue.
Yes.
But there's an additional point that comes out. If you looked at this distribution of jobs in KRA, the one unfair thing that can happen, KRA is the institution that collects our taxes and so on and so forth. So if you have got, if these persons so hired are also followers of a party, a political party, let's say UDA for that matter, and in the discharge of their functions now, they'll go for those who oppose them when they were ordinary members of the party, when they were doing their grassroots elections or doing campaigns, these officials who have been hired and so on, they would say, these were the guys that were on the other side, we go for them. Then it becomes, totally unfair and so on. But sometimes these are just young men and women who need a job. They go in there and they don't even really wear party colors, as it were, even in their own hearts. It may or may not be the case. I am happy myself that the distinction that we get here is moved from ethnic to ideological. That's it. That's a development that I think we should also stand back and say, I think superior to the previous one. However, there are other ways of doing it. I wouldn't do a lottery on this one, but I would be systematic and say, we have 47 counties or 290 constituencies. How can we distribute this out there as far as we can go, subject to meeting the qualifications that we have set aside and set up openly? We should move in that direction. But I think that having criticism of the type we got from the Senate of Nairobi, simply, he used those words simply because he's from a different party formation. You wait and see what they would do. It hasn't sunk in us how to do it differently. That's my frustration about this whole thing. So in some ways, I am glad at the development that this indicates we are moving away from to, but in another perspective, would it then impact the jobs in KRA? Not that he's supervising grassroots, no, but that when they hired, you can see this might have been people just, depending on who the honchos were from those areas, they sent in people. I have nobody at all in all of this. I know at least 20 who applied and they don't even get shortlisted.
Mheshimiwa is important. What you do, there's always a prediction you do it elsewhere. If I can see this in KRA, what makes me think this fella cannot do anything anywhere else? But I think his question is very fundamental, and I've been trying to think through. Here is a kid, so many applications, and commits suicide. I think there's I can't remember if it's a book. There's a book called The Voices of the Poor. And probably that's something we want to avoid. Because they are not poor in terms of that they cannot believe it, but they are coming from families, you'd say, they are poor in the sense that they have no connections. That's where you're headed. Because I can tell you today, somebody with a judge or a CEO, their kids will not commit suicide because they have connections. Now, when you start creating a nation like that, then this, the majority left out here, you probably if you are getting yourself in a hole, will be very difficult to get out of. And I think the point I thought Deba was raising is important. What if somebody is coming from a poor family, and you take your kid, you sell the cow you have, you sell everything you have, because you see opportunity in this child when he gets education, and then he's frustrated, what are you creating? I think that's the bottom line.
Indeed.
And this is why I pray, give everybody an opportunity.
Indeed.
Even this by whatever student. Yeah. Let them apply, call for the interview, and get the job going. I think, to me, it's a worrying trend. I can, for the three of us, I'm not sure about yourself, we grew up in the rural area, difficult areas, poor. But when we went through school, the opportunity to excel what we were given equal opportunity. It didn't matter where you came from. And that's why we excelled. Now we are saying it doesn't matter. You could be an A class. You could be great. But who is behind you? This is what you're saying. Who was behind of these people coming from Muranga?
There's a friend of mine, just to relate to what you're saying, there's a friend of mine who wanted to buy a parcel of land in a upmarket area. And he went to this renowned politician. And upon now, asking for that parcel of land that he wanted to buy, the politician asked him, where do you come from? From whose family?
Exactly. Whose family?
From whose family?
Whose family?
Right? So even where you come from, but even where you come from whose family? And then, yeah, and he did not really get the land because he was not from the right family. And for me, it's really stayed with me. I mean, what sort of country are we living? Because we cannot just sell this parcel of land because you are not coming from the family that is known. So it really relates to what you're saying. I mean, the voices of the poor is about the connections that you have. Even if you have all these requisite qualifications, good qualifications, pedigrees behind your names, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day is who will make that connection.
I think the government what they sought, that they should be focusing on.
Yeah.
Raki.
If I could add I think my colleague says that it doesn't matter whether KRA chief or chair is in charge of UDA elections. It might not make a difference. But in my opinion, perception matters. He might do it very well. He might be very loyal to UDA to carry out those polls, but perception matters. And I think when you talk about young girls and young boys committing suicide, everybody graduating from a Kenyan university knows there's a shortage of jobs. But what we want is those few jobs should be given out in the fairest way possible. And that's why I'm talking about using lottery, because when you win 100 million or 10 million through lottery, those who lose don't complain, because they say it is fair. That's what we are looking for. Now, when you talk about replacing ideology with ethnicity in recruitment of jobs in KRA, that's a good idea. But when we come to paying taxes, your ideology and your tribe does not matter. Everybody pays taxes. So in the same way, when there are jobs being given, there should be the same fairness. And I think all we are looking for is, whether it is UDA polls, whether it's UDM polls, whether it is jobs, we want fairness in this country. So that every child, whether you are from poor family, whether you are from poor background, whether you are from which ethnic group, you feel that you are taken care of. And your interests, you are not shunned away because you come from a certain place or a certain family. Fairness should be the game in the town.
Fantastic. I think we've given
Next time we should give it a full topic of discussion. There are so many pertinent dimensions to this.
And indeed, what we need to do, yes.
And by this, not just KRA jobs. Very many other jobs are the recruitment is using the same pattern. Just dig and you find that.
Right. So I hear you, Bunyasi Sakwa, but still as we are talking about KRA, we'll be remiss if we don't really also look at what the Business Daily is talking about, because we've been talking about e-teams. If I just speak, my director may just speak it in full, where KRA is finding itself, or it finds a new trick to nab suppliers after e-teams flop. Taxman tests buyer-initiated and reverse invoicing. It says buyers to generate invoices on behalf of small traders. We have the Business Daily. I just read an excerpt there. It says that the Kenya Revenue Authority is rolling out a new plan to get kiosks owners and small-scale suppliers to file electronic invoices after the taxman's attempts to rope a critical mass of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises into the tax dragnet through the electronic tax invoice management system flopped. The new system, known as buyer-initiated and reverse invoicing, will allow small businesses experiencing challenges with filing invoices to ask buyers of their products and services to generate the invoices on their behalf, which would partly shift the invoice burden to the more established corporate firms and entities. You can follow that story inside the Business Daily. And you can see the tax collection versus targets in trillion shillings. In order to meet this financial year's target, KRA has collected 1.13 trillion shillings in 4 months since 2020. As it stands right now, you can see how it's been rising. Those are the targets in orange, and they've not hit the target. And they've projected right now that they're going to shortfall by around 350 billion shillings, if I may remember. So are they, even as we are getting kiosks, we are getting barber shops, we're getting salons in this dragnet, it seems KRA is not hitting the target. Because the much they're actually trying to raise the taxes, it is counterproductive at the end of the day. Bunyasi Sakwa.
I'm very surprised because KRA was hitting targets during COVID. Look at that data, 2021, 2021,
They collected
Yes.
the highest taxes
Yes.
ever at that time.
So what was happening? We need to find out. How can they do so well when the economy was depressed?
It seems maybe people who are working from home, you are not able now to game the system. Maybe when you.
Yeah, I think it always comes out as an oddity. In fact, if you look at the near historical trend, the previous 5 years or so, it peaked during the COVID years, and you would wonder, you'd have thought that everything was depressed, but. I have no evidence of what I'm going to say, but something that anecdotally we all suspected or have suspected that there is a reason why the data of the Ministry of Finance as for what the taxes ought to be, or were collected, is different from the numbers that are given by central bank. Let's go to KRA. By KRA as having collected, and by central bank as having received. It's always a divergence between those three, and it's not just a rounding error or a time lag or something like that. So maybe because the level of economic activity was so low, it would have led to a big dip. Somehow monies came out of somewhere and filled up. The database might not have changed, because you can't quite explain. You can't explain some of it, as you say, even though
I can explain it.
Yes, even though the economy was supposed. Economic activity had gone down, but people were working from home. But I don't know if it would make up the whole thing. I was in Parliament then, and we were rather surprised that the KRA collection has gone up higher than it ever had been, when in fact we thought it would go the other way. But I would like us to, this subject we are discussing, I think is very important. I'll just, if you can find a way in which we could be a full panel, just deepening this discussion. Because we came in from the tangential angle of a KRA man supervising UDA grassroots elections. No, we really just need, in fact, we should have said, look at what KRA is, and we look at this distribution, the way they did the jobs that were so highly advertised, and many people applied from everywhere. I had personally many people who mentioned to me they had applied, many very highly qualified people of the type that KRA needs. And I'm sure there are other qualified people out there. But now if you look at the distribution of the actual selections, they have nothing to do with the merits that we had assumed were the case. That's an issue that Kenya needs to confront directly, I think.
I think this number here, this figures here, one sec. I probably want to get a big picture if you go back to 2005. If you can get 2005 to 2023, you can get why there's a time we actually almost passing our targets, and there's something behind it. I would suspect that here, when the COVID hit, there was a lot of relying on technology, and it was easy to trace from my perspective as we maneuver here. But the point I think I want to bring is this thing of, if you want people to pay back, if you want people to pay more taxes, let's see what the taxes are doing. You don't have to bring in those gadgets we talk about. But if you can demonstrate that these taxes we have collected have done A, B, C, D, and therefore I can do my business better, you see people paying more taxes. Now, it's very interesting. When you start really going up to my bedroom to tax me, and this is something we have to, I think the Revenue Authority has to be careful about. Kenyans are very innovative in their own way. They'll find a way of not declaring they have earned anything. And that's what is happening here. If you look at what we had there in terms of the 2023 or 24,
yes,
people are finding a way of not, Mama Boga is going to do his own way or her own way. But we are spending more time lying around like headless chicken than demonstrating these taxes we are collecting. It has moved us as a country from here to here for prosperity. If we can demonstrate that, people will willingly pay taxes.
May
Right.
I add
Me
something? May I add something? I'm not Geturo, yes, Geturo.
Yeah.
I think that's the fact that tax collection went up during COVID should not be a paradox. In fact, it confirms what I've said in this forum very many times. that one way to raise more taxes is actually to reduce the tax rates.
Yeah, I call you Kijuro. I wanted to change his mic. Just continue.
If you remember,
yes.
if you remember during COVID,
Continue.
the corporate tax went down, corporate rate tax went down, VAT rate went down, and there were other incentives. And that's why you can see the tax rate, the tax collected went up. And this probably is what Lafar's curve has always confirmed. That one way, in addition to showing what the tax is doing, is to reduce the tax rates. And people will find it easier to comply, easier to pay, and we are going to get more taxes. But now what we are talking about is militarization of taxes. You remember a few months ago, there was a headline that the new people we are recruiting to collect taxes have gone through paramilitary training. So when you start threatening taxpayers, he is right. They will become with innovative ways of making sure that they don't pay as much tax as expected. And I've always given this example, that you play music to cows, they will give you more milk.
Right.
And I've seen cows do that practically. So play music to the Kenyan taxpayers.
Music is very therapeutic.
Yes, they'll give you more taxes.
Of course, you have to feed the cow, then you play music.
Of course, feeding is obvious. Feeding is obvious.
All right, we need to play the music also to the manufacturing sector, where we have them calling on the government, right? If we just go back to manufacturer story there, I think my person
Which paper is it?
is mixing me up. So, but this is just regarding also the manufacturing sector and what is happening there regarding the cost of living. They're saying that is quite depressed there. I think they've lost the story, so we shall just come back to that much later. Yes, there we go. Manufacturers have called on the government to reduce the cost of electricity. This comes as Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, proposed an electricity tariff review that could increase the cost of electricity for manufacturers by 38%. Let's hear from Sophia Ali.
The government continues to call on manufacturers to utilize night tariffs in a bid to double and lower the cost of production, with the Energy PS noting that the manufacturers could use up to 1,000 megawatts at night.
Cost of power, what we are encouraging the manufacturers is to utilize what we call the time of use tariff. The time of use tariff is, we are telling the manufacturers, what you're producing during the day, try and double up that so that you also produce during the night. And that way you can be able to save as much as 25% of your cost of power. We are trying to lower our system and transmission losses from 22.84%, which is the current rate, to about 15% in the next 4-5 years. If you're able to lower that, that will translate to lower bills. Because if you are able to transmit more power, evacuate more power to the load centers, we increase the consumption, such that we reduce the venting during the night, then the average cost of power will definitely come down.
While unveiling Manufacturing Priority Agenda 2024, the sector players raised concerns over high cost of electricity in the country, impacting the overall cost of over 1,000 manufacturing companies in Kenya. High power prices are a hindrance to Kenya's manufacturing competitiveness.
When you're talking about the cost of power, mostly you find the industries are concentrated around here in Nairobi. 85% of the industries are around Nairobi. And currently, the cost of power stands at around 0.19 cents US dollars per kilowatt per hour. We want to see how this can be reduced to 10 cents US dollars per kilowatt per hour, so that we can infuse competitiveness in the manufacturing sector.
Planned and unplanned outages continues to bedevil Kenya's grid, with surplus generation at night from geothermal and wind not being dispatched due to inadequate demand during these hours, even as the country struggles to meet shoulder and peak loads during the evening hours. Sophia Ali for KTN News.
Well, some bit of a good news now, where Kenya's overall inflation has declined to 5.7% in March from 6.3% in February. Super Bowl, of course, will show us this. According to a release by Central Bank of Kenya's Monetary Policy Committee, this decline has been driven by lower food and fuel inflation. Food inflation declined to 5.8% in March from 6.9% in February, reflecting lower prices of some food items, particularly maize and wheat products, carrots, kales and cabbages, following improved supply attributed to ongoing harvests and favorable weather conditions. Fuel inflation declined to 12.3% in March from 13.4% in February, largely reflecting The impact of the shilling's appreciation, which resulted in decrease in electricity prices, non-food and non-fuel prices remained stable at 3.6% both in February and March. Thailand is seeking partnerships with Kenyan businesses backed with government support in an effort to stabilize the trade balance between the two nations, according to the new Thai ambassador to Kenya, Ms. Morakot. This one is a mouthful for me. Janet Ahmad Kormon. I hope I got it right, that there are numerous opportunities for trade between the two nations, especially on health, manufacturing, and the automotive sector, giving impetus to e-mobility.
Forward to the growth, we look forward to bringing down or narrowing the trade imbalance between our countries, even as we create opportunities for our people.
At the moment, Thailand and Africa, especially Kenya, we know that each other have a number of opportunities. However, we seem to know each other too little, so that we can share the common well-being or common prosperity. We think we should work even more closer and get to know each other, not only at the governmental level, but it also at the private sector levels and people's connections.
Now, the Capital Markets Authority convened the Capital Markets Industry Leaders Forum, deliberating on the performance of the markets and how to leverage their sector to improve economic growth and development. During the session, emphasis was placed on local investors as pivotal market participants to drive sustainable growth, highlighting the need to position markets to attract domestic capital from both retail and institutional investors.
If you look at other financial sector, you might stumble into something, maybe in the mass media or somewhere else, pushing the agenda. You know, we have our regulator hat, but what is more important is not about I totally agree with Mr. Kiraide. We've gone beyond the hurdle. We have actually matured when it comes to the issues of regulations and policy frameworks. We are actually above and beyond even some of the developed nations. But the question now, how do you translate that to Mama Mboga? How do you translate that to the, the organic growth of capital from our retail investors, our Kenyan, local, domestic? That is the key question. And have we been doing enough? That is the main issue that we are talking about today.
I know the next story will make ex and Iraqi happy, where the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, in partnership with Kaiho, East Africa, have launched a spare parts auction where car dealers and owners can bid for automotive spare parts. This is expected to be a game changer in the automotive industry. Take a listen.
Of Kaiho, East Africa Limited, which is a partnership with the Kaiho Industry Corporation of Japan, gives us that surety of a reliable supply of quality, traceable product.
Not only we are dealing with spare parts, but also we are trying to partner with another government entity to recycle all the vehicle, so that we are going to start that kind of recycling vehicle business here in the near future.
But I think what is more critical for our auto industry when it comes to Kaiho, remember that they are in the circular economy. They are big in end of life for motor vehicles, especially in Japan, and they're going to bring that skill and capability into Kenya.
What we would like to advise them is this be a very professional job. Somebody needs to do a quality test, and that's what they're doing, to ensure that even if it's a used spare part, it meets the standard that has been set by KEPS and others, so that it's also safe and it's also fitted in the right car.
All right, we want to take a short break. I was just wondering, Kaiho, but they also, Kaiho, I don't have the Kaiho here, but this is a Kaiho from Japan.
Yes, Kaiho.
Right, Kaiho.
Kaiho, not...
Kaiho. Kaiho, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like Kaiho. If you just maybe using the inflections a bit there.
That's true.
You can pronounce it as Kahio. All right, even as you're using your Kahio this morning to eat your breakfast, we want to slake our thirst as well. We'll take some refreshments here. We'll take a short break. When we circle back, we shall be looking at the Treasury single account and how that is going to be a game changer, especially when we're talking about fighting corruption in this country. This has been in the pipeline and up the collective sleeves of the government for the last 10 good years. So finally something is in the offing. Let's see how that will pan out on the other side of the break.